Let me start by sharing something that recently landed in my inbox. Now, my inbox isn't your typical inbox. It's filled with deeply personal letters from people all over the world. That's because I'm a therapist, and I also write a column called Dear Therapist. So, you can imagine, I've seen a lot. These letters talk about everything from heartbreak and loss, to family tensions and silent grudges. It's become a habit of mine to save these letters in a special folder on my laptop. I call it the problems of living. One day, I came across an email that felt both unique and familiar, something I've seen echoes of many times before. I want to bring you into that moment. Let me read it to you. Dear Therapist, I've been married for 10 years, and things were good until a couple of years ago. That's when my husband started pulling away, intimately. We barely have sex anymore. Last night, I found out he's been having long late-night phone calls with a woman from his office. I looked her up. She's stunning. I feel crushed. When I was a kid, my dad had an affair with a coworker. It tore our family apart. Now it feels like history is repeating itself. If I stay, I don't think I'll ever trust him again. But if I leave, I don't want to drag my kids through a divorce. What should I do? Asterisk. Phew. That's heavy, right? If this letter had landed in your inbox, how would you respond? You might feel a wave of sympathy for her. Maybe even a little anger toward the husband. And you'd be absolutely right to feel that way. This kind of betrayal cuts deep, especially when it echoes pain from the past. And honestly, I feel that too when I read letters like this. But here's the thing, when I read these messages, I always remind myself. Every story we hear is just one version. It's filtered through one perspective. And that doesn't make it untrue. It just means it's incomplete. Does that make sense so far? Ever caught yourself only seeing your side of a story? One of the most powerful lessons I've learned as a therapist is this. We're all unreliable narrators of our own lives. Yes, even me. Even you. Even your best friend who swears they're always the most objective one in the group chat. But wait, I'm not saying people lie on purpose. Most of us believe everything we say. It's just that how we tell our stories, what we focus on, what we gloss over shapes how we experience those stories. Ever noticed how you can tell the same story differently depending on who's listening? Psychologist Jerome Bruner once said something profound. To tell a story is inescapably to take a moral stance. Think about that. Every story we tell ourselves explains why things happen the way they did. Why we acted a certain way. Why someone else hurt us. These stories aren't just memories, they're meaning makers. They shape our identities. But here's the twist. What happens when the story you're telling yourself isn't quite right? What if it's holding you back instead of helping you move forward? Ever wondered if the way you've been framing your life might be what's keeping you stuck? We often think our lives shape our stories. But more often than not, it's the reverse. The stories we tell shape how we live. That's both the risk and the power of storytelling. And here's where things get interesting. If we can edit our stories, we can start changing our lives. You with me so far? Ready to explore what editing your story could look like? Now let's go back to what I said earlier. I'm a therapist. But when I'm on an airplane and someone asks what I do, I usually say I'm an editor. Why? Because when I say I'm a therapist, people get weird. They joke. Are you analyzing me right now? And I think, okay, would you ask a gynecologist for a checkup in 14B? Laughs. But more importantly, I say editor, because it's true in a deeper way. That's what therapists do. We help people revise their narratives. Have you ever caught yourself repeating the same chapter over and over again? In my work as the Dear Therapist columnist, I get to edit one letter a week, not just to help one person, but to help thousands of readers recognize parts of their own stories. I ask questions like, what parts are distractions? Is the main character growing or stuck? What themes are playing out? And what story are they truly trying to tell? Over time, I've noticed that most stories people bring to therapy orbit around two big themes: freedom and change. Let's take freedom first. We like to think we're free until something goes wrong. Suddenly we feel stuck. I can't leave this relationship. My family dynamic will never change. This job is draining the life out of me, but I can't afford to quit. Ever caught yourself saying, I have no choice, when deep down you do? Sometimes the prison isn't outside of us. It's in our minds. We're locked in by self-criticism and invisible scripts that tell us we're not enough. Everyone else is doing better than me. I'm too broken. I always mess things up. Even Siri ignores me. She hates me too. The woman who wrote that letter? She feels trapped. Stay in the marriage and she loses trust. Leave and the kids lose stability. That's a no-win situation, or so it seems. Ever felt like you were stuck between two doors and both felt wrong? There's this cartoon I love. It shows a prisoner shaking the bars in front of him, desperate to get out. But if he just stepped to the side, he'd see there are no bars there. Freedom isn't blocked. It's just hidden behind fear of what change might mean. And that leads us to the second theme, change. A lot of people say, I want to change. But often what they really mean is, I want someone else to change. Can you relate? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if only they would act differently, I'd be fine? Therapists have a cheeky way of putting it. If the queen had balls, she'd be king. In other words, change is hard because even positive change means giving something up. Sometimes we cling to what's familiar even when it hurts because at least we know the storyline. We know the roles, the routines, the fights, even the repeated lines. You never help around here. I did last week. Oh yeah? When? Sound familiar? Writing a new story means facing a blank page. And blank pages? They can be terrifying. But here's the good news. Once you start editing your old script, that blank page becomes a space of possibility. What would your next chapter look like if you gave yourself permission to write it? Getting to know ourselves isn't just about discovering who we are. Sometimes it's about unknowing, letting go of the narratives that no longer serve us. That's how we finally walk around the bars. So back to the woman's letter, she asked, what should I do? And here's something I keep taped to my desk. Ultracrepidarianism. It's the tendency to give advice outside your area of expertise. It's a reminder that as a therapist, my job isn't to tell someone what to do. It's to help them clarify their own voice, their own truth. In the end, only you can write your story. What if, right now, you could grab the pen and start editing? So here's my question for you as we wrap up this segment. What's a story you've been telling yourself that might need a rewrite? It might be about your job, your relationship, maybe even about you. Take a moment. Breathe. The next page is still blank. Ready to write what comes next.